The great crystal caves of Valthara had not echoed with dragon song for over 300 years. Deep within the largest cavern, where purple crystals grew tall as mountains and glowed with ancient starlight, Kiros lay dying, his massive body stretched across the crystal floor like a fallen mountain. Each scale on his hide held the light of distant stars, but now that light was fading. Golden blood seeped from wounds that would not heal. The plague that had taken his brothers and sisters was finally claiming him too. Kiros had been the last of the star dragons for 50 years now. He had watched his people die one by one. First the younglings stopped being born, then the elders began to weaken. The plague came from nowhere, striking without warning. It ate away at their life force, the very energy that connected them to the cosmos. The dragon's great head rested on the crystal ground. His eyes, which had once burned like twin suns, now dimmed to the soft glow of dying embers. He could feel his connection to the stars growing weaker with each breath. Soon, he would join his people in whatever realm waited beyond death. But Kiros was not ready to die. Not yet. He lifted his massive head and looked around the empty cavern. Thousands of years ago, this place had been filled with the songs and laughter of his kind. Dragon hatchlings had played among the crystals while their parents shared stories of distant worlds. Now only silence remained. The star dragons had been the guardians of cosmic balance for millions of years. They traveled between worlds, helping young species learn to reach for the stars. They prevented wars between planets and guided civilizations toward wisdom. With their death, the galaxy had grown darker and more dangerous. Kiros closed his eyes and reached out with his mind, searching the cosmos for something he could not name. His people had always been able to sense life across the galaxy. They could feel the birth of new stars and the hopes of growing civilizations. It was this gift that had made them such good guardians. As his consciousness spread across space, touching world after world, Kiros felt mostly emptiness. So many planets had fallen to war or disaster since his people died. The hegemony of Shar had grown bolder, conquering system after system. Without the dragons to stop them, evil flourished in the darkness between stars. Then something caught his attention. A small blue world in a young solar system. The planet teemed with life, but it was the emotional cry from its surface that made Kiros pause. Someone was calling out in desperate need. The voice carried such pure love and fear that it cut through the dragon's pain like a blade of light. Kiros focused his fading strength on that distant world. The voice belonged to a human male named Die.It. The dragon could sense the human's thoughts and emotions across the vast distance. Die.It was a scientist who studied life on other worlds. He spent his days looking at stars and wondering if his people were alone in the universe. But right now, Die.It was not thinking about science. His mate, Hana, was giving birth during a terrible storm. Solar winds lashed their world, filling the air with deadly energy. The humans' medical machines were failing. His unborn child was in danger, and there was nothing he could do to help. In his desperation, Die.It had activated an old communication device. He was sending a message into space, begging anyone who might be listening to help save his child. The human did not really expect an answer. He was simply a father doing everything he could for his baby. Kiros felt something stir in his dying heart. This human's love for his unborn child reminded the dragon of his own people's devotion to their young. But there was something else. As Kiros focused on the baby still in its mother's womb, he sensed something extraordinary. The child carried a spark unlike anything the dragon had ever encountered. It was not just human. Something about the cosmic storm and the unique conditions of the birth had created a soul capable of bridging different forms of life. This baby could potentially carry the consciousness of multiple species without losing its own identity. Kiros had spent millions of years searching for such a being. His people had ancient prophecies about a bridge builder who would unite the scattered species of the galaxy. They had always assumed it would be another dragon. They never considered it might be something entirely new. The dying dragon made a choice that went against everything his people had ever taught him. Star dragons were supposed to die with honor when their time came. They were meant to return, their life force to the cosmos and join their ancestors in the great beyond. To cling to life was considered shameful, but Kiros could not let this opportunity pass. If he died now, the bridge builder would perish with him. The galaxy would lose its last hope for peace and unity. The dragon had to act, even if it meant breaking the most sacred laws of his people. Using the last of his strength, Kairos began to gather his remaining life force. The process was agony. Every fiber of his being wanted to let go and embrace the peaceful darkness of death. But he forced himself to compress his essence, preparing for one final journey. The dragon's massive body began to shrink as his consciousness condensed itself into a smaller, more manageable form. His scales dulled from starlight silver to deep blue-black. His eyes changed from golden fire to soft purple light. He would no longer be the mighty star dragon of legend, but he would still have enough power to make a difference. As Kiros prepared to leave Valthara forever, he sent out one last message to his empty homeworld. He told the spirits of his people what he had found and what he intended to do. He asked for their forgiveness and their blessing. The crystal caves seemed to pulse with gentle light, as if the ghosts of his people were answering. Kairos felt their approval wash over him like warm starlight. They understood. Sometimes survival was more important than tradition. With a sound like thunder across dimensions, Kairos launched himself into space. His compressed form streaked across the galaxy like a falling star heading toward a small blue world where a baby waited to be born. Behind him, the crystal caves of Valthara fell silent forever. The last star dragon was finally leaving home, not to die, but to begin the most important mission of his long life. The research station on Earth shook as another wave of solar energy hit the protective shields. Dr. Kim Dae-ho wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched the medical monitors flash red warning lights. His wife Hana lay on the medical bed, her face pale with pain and exhaustion. "The baby is coming too early," said Choi Mina, the station's medical officer. Her hands moved quickly over the control panel, but half the machines were not working properly. The solar storm outside was causing too much interference. "The radiation levels are getting worse." Dae-ho looked out the small window at the angry sky. Streams of green and purple light danced across the darkness. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. He had studied these cosmic storms for years, but he had never been caught in one this powerful. "How much longer will it last?" he asked. "At least 6 more hours," replied Dr. Yoon-taek from his position at the communication station. "Maybe longer. The whole planet is being hit by charged particles from space." Hana cried out in pain. The baby was trying to be born, but something was wrong. Mina checked the readings again and her face grew worried. "The child's heart rate is dropping," she said quietly to Dae-ho. "The radiation is affecting the baby, even in the womb. If we cannot get the medical systems working soon..." She did not need to finish. Dae-ho understood. His child might not survive. In desperation, he had sent out his message to space hours ago. It seemed foolish now. What had he expected? That aliens would suddenly appear to help them? But he was a scientist, and scientists tried everything when faced with the impossible. Han Soo-young, the youngest member of their team, was working frantically to restore power to the medical equipment. Sparks flew from damaged circuits as she tried to repair them by hand. "I can get maybe 10 more minutes of power," she said. "But after that we are working with basic tools only." Dae-ho took his wife's hand. Hana looked up at him with tired eyes. "The baby will be strong," she whispered. "Like his father." Before Dae-ho could answer, the entire station was filled with a strange humming sound. It was low and deep, like the song of whales, but much more powerful. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with the noise. "What is that?" Mina asked, looking around nervously. The humming grew louder. Outside, the solar storm seemed to be calming down. The wild streams of light in the sky began to move in patterns, as if something was organizing the chaos. Then the lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. But in that brief darkness, they had all seen something impossible. A shape had appeared outside the station. Something huge and glowing was approaching through the storm. "Everyone stay calm," Dr. Tyke said, but his voice was shaking. He was the oldest member of their team and had never seen anything like this. The humming stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence except for the quiet beeping of the medical machines. Then they heard a new sound, footsteps. But they were too heavy to be human. The main door to their station opened with a soft hiss. Nobody had unlocked it. What stepped through the doorway was beyond anything they could have imagined. It was clearly not human, but it was not the monster they might have expected. The being was tall and moved with grace despite its size. Its skin looked like it was made of dark scales that caught the light. Most striking were its eyes. They glowed with soft purple light and held an intelligence that was clearly ancient. Kairos had arrived. The dragon looked around the room at the frightened humans. He could sense their fear, but also their love for the woman and unborn child. These were good people faced with an impossible situation. Hana cried out again. The baby was coming now, whether the medical equipment worked or not. Kairos moved toward the medical bed. The humans backed away, but not because they sensed danger. Something about the dragon's presence made them feel calm instead of afraid. This being radiated peace and protection. "Please," Die.It said, not sure if the creature could understand him. "Help my child." Kairos nodded slowly. He could understand their language easily enough. Star dragons had always been able to communicate with any intelligent species. The dragon knelt beside the medical bed. Up close, the humans could see that his scales were not just dark. They held tiny points of light, like a night sky full of stars. When he moved, the light shifted and flowed like living galaxies. Kairos placed one large clawed hand gently on Hana's stomach. She gasped, not from pain, but from surprise. Warmth spread through her body, and for the first time in hours, she felt truly safe. The dragon closed his eyes and reached out with his consciousness. He could sense the baby inside, struggling to live. The radiation from the solar storm had damaged the child's small body. Without help, the baby would die within minutes of being born. But Kairos had not traveled across the galaxy to watch the bridge builder die. The dragon began to share his life force with the unborn child. It was a delicate process. Too much energy would destroy the baby's human nature. Too little would not be enough to heal the damage. Kairos had to find the perfect balance. Golden light began to flow from the dragon's hand into Hana's body. The medical monitors that were still working showed the baby's heart rate growing stronger. The humans watched in amazement as readings that had been failing began to improve. But the process was costing Kairos dearly. Sharing his life force with another being was creating a permanent connection between them. The dragon's own immortal lifespan was now linked to the human child. When the baby died, Kairos would die too. When the child lived, the dragon would share in that life. It was a price Kairos was willing to pay. Baby Jiho was born as the solar storm finally ended. He came into the world with a strong cry that filled the research station with joy. His small body glowed with health, and his eyes seemed to hold depths that no newborn should possess. Mina checked the baby carefully. "He is perfect," she said, with wonder in her voice. "All the radiation damage is gone. It is like he was never affected at all." Kairos stood slowly. The effort of healing the child had left him weaker, but also strangely satisfied. He looked down at baby Jiho and saw the spark he had sensed from across the galaxy. The bridge builder lived. Die.It approached the dragon carefully. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved our son." Kairos nodded, but he did not leave. Instead, he settled down near the medical bed, his glowing eyes watching over the newborn child. The humans realized that their visitor intended to stay. The last star dragon had found his new purpose. He would guard this special child and help him grow into his destiny. Outside, the sky cleared for the first time in days. The solar storm was over, But a new chapter in the history of Earth had just begun. 8 years had passed since the night Kairos arrived on Earth. The research station had become too small for a growing family and their dragon guardian, so the Kim family had moved to Seoul. Life in the big city was different, but they had learned to adapt. Young Park Ji-ho sat in his bedroom, reading a book about space exploration. At 8 years old, he looked like any other human child, but his eyes held wisdom that seemed much older. Sometimes, when he concentrated, tiny flecks of gold appeared in his dark pupils. Kairos lay curled up nearby, though he was now much smaller than when he first arrived. The dragon had learned to compress his form even further to fit into human spaces. He was about the size of a large dog, but his scales still held the light of distant stars. Most people who saw him thought he was some kind of unusual pet. "Kairos," Ji-ho said without looking up from his book. "There are people watching our house again." The dragon opened one purple eye. "I know, little one. They have been there for 3 days." Across the city, Professor Nam Ji-young sat in her government laboratory, studying energy readings on multiple computer screens. For months, she had been tracking unusual power signatures in Seoul. The readings were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They seemed to pulse with patterns that suggested intelligence. "Show me the location data again," she told her assistant. The map on her screen zoomed in on a quiet neighborhood. A red dot marked the source of the strange energy. It was coming from a simple family home where a scientist named Kim Dae-ho lived with his wife and son. Professor Nam had done her research. Dae-ho had worked at a remote research station until 8 years ago. Then he had suddenly requested a transfer to the city. His personnel file mentioned that his son had been born during a severe solar storm, but there were gaps in the official reports from that night. "Have you found anything else about the family?" she asked. "The boy is exceptional in school," her assistant replied. "His teachers say he understands complex subjects that most children his age cannot grasp. He also seems to predict things before they happen." Professor Nam frowned. Children did not naturally develop such abilities. Something had changed this boy, and she intended to find out what. At the Kim family home, Dae-ho was preparing dinner when his son came into the kitchen. "Father, the people watching us are going to approach tomorrow," Ji-ho said calmly. Dae-ho stopped cutting vegetables. Over the years, he had learned to trust his son's unusual insights. The boy was never wrong about these things. "What kind of people?" Dae-ho asked. "Government scientists. They want to study Kairos and me." Hana looked up from where she was setting the table. "Are we in danger?" Kairos padded into the kitchen, his small form moving with liquid grace. "Not danger," the dragon said in his deep, quiet voice. "But change is coming. The boy is growing into his abilities. Soon we will not be able to hide what he is." The dragon rarely spoke aloud, preferring to communicate through the mental link he shared with Ji-ho. But when he did speak, his words carried the weight of ancient wisdom. That evening, the family sat together in their living room. Kairos had grown slightly larger, his form more majestic as he prepared to explain important things to them. "Ji-ho is not just human anymore," the dragon began. "When I shared my life force with him as a baby, I changed his nature. He can now bridge the gap between different forms of life." "What does that mean?" Hana asked. "It means he can understand and communicate with species that humans have never met. He can sense things across great distances. Most importantly, he carries the potential to unite different peoples who might otherwise be enemies." Ji-ho listened quietly. He had always known. He was different, but hearing it explained made it feel more real. "There are others coming," Kairos continued. "Not humans. They travel between stars and they are not friendly. They destroyed my people long ago and now they have found Earth." Dae-ho felt cold fear in his stomach. "How long do we have?" "Months. Perhaps less. They move slowly, but they are very powerful. When they arrive, Earth's weapons will not be enough to stop them." "Then what can we do?" Hana asked. Kairos looked at Ji-ho with his glowing purple eyes. "We prepare the bridge builder for his destiny." The next morning, Professor Nam Ji-young arrived at the Kim house with 2 security agents. She rang the doorbell and waited politely, but her heart was racing with excitement. After months of investigation, she was finally going to get answers. Dai-Ho opened the door. He looked tired, as if he had not slept well. "Dr. Kim," Professor Nam said with a respectful bow. "I am Professor Nam from the National Science Institute. I would like to speak with you about some unusual energy readings in this area." "I was wondering when you would come," Dai-Ho replied. "Please come inside." Professor Nam was surprised by his calm response. She had expected denials or attempts to avoid her questions. The living room looked normal except for what appeared to be a large, unusual animal resting near the window. The creature looked like no species she had ever seen. Its dark scales caught the light in strange ways, and its eyes glowed with soft purple light. "This is Kiros," said a young voice. Professor Nam turned to see a boy of about 8 years old. He looked perfectly normal except for his eyes, which seemed far too knowing for his age. "You are Jiho," she said. "Yes. And you are Professor Nam. You have been studying the energy patterns that Kairos and I create together." The professor's mouth fell open. How could this child know such things? Kairos raised his head and looked directly at her. When he spoke, his voice filled the room with harmonic tones that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Professor Nam Ji-young," the dragon said, "you seek knowledge about us. But first, you must understand that what you learn today will change your life forever. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Professor Nam stared at the speaking creature, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Evidence of intelligent alien life right here on Earth. "Yes," she whispered. "I am ready." Outside, Captain Kang Woo-jin of the Earth Defense Force was reading reports of increased activity in the outer solar system. Space monitoring stations had detected several large objects moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. The objects did not match any known asteroid or comet patterns. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving similar reports from defense networks around the world. Something is definitely coming toward Earth." Captain Woo-jin studied the data. The approaching objects were still months away, but their size and speed suggested technology far beyond anything humans possessed. "Keep monitoring," he ordered, "and start preparing our defense systems. If these are not natural objects, we may be facing the first contact with hostile aliens." He had no idea that the key to Earth's survival was sitting in a quiet house in Seoul. Learning about his destiny from the last guardian of an ancient race, the growing storm was about to break, and young Jiho would soon discover just how much the galaxy needed him. The first alien ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They came not as single vessels, but as a massive fleet that blocked out the sun over major cities around the world. The ships were black as deep space, shaped like twisted claws that seemed to tear holes in the blue sky. Captain Kang Woo-jin stood in the Earth Defense Force Command Center, watching reports flood in from every continent. The alien fleet had appeared without warning, somehow bypassing all of Earth's early detection systems. "How many ships?" he asked his communications officer. "Over 300 confirmed, sir. More arriving every minute. They are taking positions above population centers worldwide." On the main screen, images showed the massive alien vessels hovering over Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, and dozens of other cities. Each ship was easily the size of a mountain. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Have they made any attempt to communicate?" Captain Woo-jin asked. Before anyone could answer, every screen in the command center flickered. The image that appeared made everyone in the room step back in horror. The alien that looked down at them was nothing like the peaceful dragons of legend. This creature was tall and skeletal, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were black holes that seemed to pull light into them. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am War Commander Thexal of the Hegemony of Shar," the alien said. "Your world has been selected for harvesting. You have one of your Earth days to surrender completely. Any resistance will result in the immediate destruction of your largest cities." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Captain Woo-jin felt ice in his veins, but he forced himself to stay calm. Send word to all defense networks. Prepare every weapon system we have. If they want to fight, we will give them one. Across the city, Professor Nam was rushing through the halls of her laboratory building. The alien arrival had confirmed her worst fears about the strange energy readings she had been tracking. She needed to get to the Kim family immediately. Her phone rang as she ran. It was Dr. Kim Dae-ho. Professor Nam. His voice was calm despite the chaos outside. You need to come to our house now. Kairos says it is time. I am already on my way, she replied, dodging panicked people in the hallways. The aliens? They are the ones Kairos warned us about? Yes. The hegemony of Shar. They destroyed his people, and now they have come for Earth. At the Kim house, the family was gathered in their living room. Despite the alien ships filling the sky outside, there was a strange sense of calm within their home. Kairos had grown to his full size, no longer hiding his true nature. The dragon's body filled most of the room, his scales glowing with starlight. 8-year-old Jiho sat cross-legged in front of his guardian, his eyes closed in concentration. Golden light flowed between them as their shared consciousness expanded. I can feel them, Jiho said quietly. The aliens. They are filled with hunger and hate. They see our world as nothing but resources to be taken. Hana knelt beside her son, her hand on his shoulder. Are you afraid? Jiho opened his eyes and looked at his mother with a sad smile. Yes, but not for myself. I am afraid for everyone else. Kairos lowered his great head until he was eye level with the boy. The time has come for you to understand the full truth. Little bridge builder, what I am about to show you will hurt, but you must see it. The dragon touched his forehead to Jiho's, and suddenly the boy's mind was filled with visions of ancient battles. He saw the hegemony's war fleets destroying world after world. He watched civilizations burn as the aliens harvested everything of value and left only dead rocks behind. But most painful of all, he saw the death of the star dragons. The plague that had killed Kairos's people was not natural. It had been created by the hegemony as a weapon to destroy the only species powerful enough to stop them. They killed your family, Jiho whispered, tears running down his face. Yes, Kairos replied, and now they have come for yours. Professor Nam arrived just as the first alien attack began. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, striking military, bases, and government buildings. The weapons were surgical in their precision, designed to cripple Earth's defenses without damaging the infrastructure the aliens wanted to keep. She burst through the front door to find the Kim family in the middle of what looked like a war council. Kairos had expanded his consciousness to show them tactical information about the alien fleet. Professor Nam, Dae-ho said without looking away from the dragon. Kairos says you have an important role to play in what comes next. What can I do? She asked. I am just a scientist. You are more than that, Kairos rumbled. You have spent months studying the connection between Jiho and myself. That knowledge will be crucial for what must happen next. On the television, news reports showed Earth's military forces engaging the alien ships. Missiles and energy weapons struck the black hulls but caused no visible damage. The alien vessels seemed to absorb the attacks and grow stronger. Captain, Wujin's voice came over the emergency broadcast system. All civilian populations are advised to seek shelter immediately. Our conventional weapons are having no effect on the hostile ships. Jiho stood up, his small frame somehow radiating power that made the air around him shimmer. Kairos, if we fight them together, what will happen to us? The dragon's ancient eyes grew sad. Our life forces are connected, little one. If I use my full power against the hegemony, the energy required will likely kill us both. Hana gasped and reached for her son, but Jiho gently took her hand. Mother, he said with a voice that sounded far too mature for his 8 years. I have always known this day would come. Kairos has been preparing me for it since I was born. No, Hana said firmly. There has to be another way. You are just a child. I am the bridge builder, Jiho replied. This is why I exist. To stand between the darkness and the light when no one else can. Daiho knelt beside his son. Are you certain this is the only way? Kairos answered for both of them. The hegemony cannot be defeated by conventional means. They have conquered thousands of worlds and destroyed countless species, but they have never faced the combination of dragon wisdom and human determination. Outside, more alien ships were descending through the atmosphere. Ground forces began landing in major cities. The creatures that emerged from the landing craft were smaller versions of War Commander Thexal, but equally terrifying. They moved with mechanical precision, setting up energy weapons and communication arrays. Professor Nam pulled up data on her tablet computer. According to my readings, when you and Jiho combine your abilities, the energy output increases exponentially, but the strain on your shared life force would be fatal, Kairos finished. Yes, but it would also create a beacon that could be felt across the galaxy. Other worlds that have suffered under the hegemony would see that resistance is possible. Jiho walked to the window and looked up at the alien ships blotting out the sky. How long do we have? War Commander Thexal will not wait long, Kairos said. He knows something on this planet threatens his fleet. That is why they attacked so quickly. They can sense my presence and yours. As if summoned by their conversation, a new transmission appeared on every screen and device in the world. War Commander. Thexal's skeletal face filled the displays. Humans of Earth, the alien commander said. We know you harbor one of the ancient dragons. Surrender the creature and the human child it protects, and we will make your deaths quick. Continue to resist, and we will harvest your entire species slowly. The transmission ended, leaving the room in tense silence. Jiho turned away from the window and looked at each of the adults in turn. His young face was set with determination that broke his parents' hearts. We will not surrender, he said simply. Tomorrow, Kairos and I will face them together. As night fell over a world under siege, the last star dragon and the human boy who carried his life force prepared for a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Dawn broke gray and cold over Seoul. The alien ship still filled the sky like a dark ceiling, blocking most of the sunlight. In the distance, smoke rose from damaged buildings, where the hegemony forces had struck during the night. Jiho stood in his backyard, looking up at the massive vessels hovering overhead. He was no longer dressed like a normal 8-year-old boy. Kairos had used his power to create special clothing for their final battle. The outfit looked like a combination of dragon scales and starlight, protecting the boy while allowing his abilities to flow freely. Kairos stood beside him in his full dragon form. The great beast was magnificent and terrible, his scales blazing with the light of dying stars. His purple eyes held both ancient sadness and fierce determination. Are you ready, little bridge builder? The dragon asked. Jiho nodded. I understand what we have to do. Inside the house, Daiho, Hana, and Professor Nam watched through the window. Hana had been crying, but now her face was set with brave acceptance. Her son was no longer just her child. He belonged to the galaxy now. Will we see them again? She asked quietly. Professor Nam checked her instruments one more time. The energy readings are unlike anything I have ever measured. What they are about to attempt will be felt across multiple star systems. That is not what she asked, Daiho said gently. Professor Nam looked at the family with sad eyes. I do not know. But whatever happens, they will not be forgotten. High above the city, War Commander Thexal stood on the bridge of his flagship. His black eyes watched the dragon and child in the small backyard below. He had been hunting the last star dragon for decades. Now, finally, he would complete the extinction of the species that had opposed the hegemony for so long. All ships target the dragon and the human spawn, he commanded. Maximum power. I want nothing left but ashes. Energy began building in the weapons of 300 alien ships. The air itself started to hum with deadly power, but Jiho and Kairos were not waiting to be attacked. The boy climbed onto the dragon's back, settling between Kairos's great shoulder blades. As soon as they made physical contact, golden light exploded around them. The light was so bright that it could be seen from space. "Now," Kairos said. Together they launched themselves into the sky. The dragon's wings beat with the rhythm of cosmic winds, carrying them up toward the alien fleet. But this was not just physical flight. Jiho and Kairos were moving through dimensions that the hegemony could barely understand. War Commander Thexal snarled as he watched them approach. "Fire all weapons!" Hundreds of energy beams lanced out from the alien ships converging on the dragon and his rider, but the attacks passed harmlessly through them. Jiho and Kairos were no longer entirely in normal space. They existed partially in the realm where thought became reality. "Impossible," Thexal hissed. "Nothing can survive our weapons." "You never understood." Jiho's voice somehow reached every ship in the fleet, speaking in perfect hegemony language. "Power is not about destruction. It is about connection." The boy reached out with his consciousness, enhanced by Kiros's ancient wisdom. Suddenly, his awareness expanded beyond Earth, beyond the solar system, across the galaxy itself. He could sense every world the hegemony had conquered, every species they had enslaved or destroyed. But he could also sense something else. On planets scattered across thousands of light years, other civilizations were watching. They had detected the energy burst from Earth. For the first time in centuries, someone was fighting back against the hegemony. "Look," Jiho said, his voice now reaching across space itself. "See what we can become together." He began to broadcast images directly into the minds of every thinking being within 100 light years. They saw humans and dragons working together. They saw what was possible when different species combined their strengths instead of fighting each other. On the hegemony flagship, War Commander Thexal staggered as the alien boy's thoughts invaded his mind. For a moment he saw the galaxy not as a resource to be harvested, but as a community of worlds that could support each other. "No," he snarled, shaking off the vision. "I will not be weakened by your lies." But doubt had been planted. Around the fleet, other hegemony commanders were experiencing the same visions. Some began to question their orders for the first time in their lives. Jiho felt the strain of maintaining contact with so many minds across such vast distances. His human body was not designed for this level of cosmic awareness. Golden blood began to trickle from his nose. "I cannot hold it much longer," he told Kiros. "Then we finish this now," the dragon replied. Kiros drew upon every remaining spark of his life force. The dragon's body began to glow like a star about to go nova. At the same time, Jiho opened his mind completely, becoming a perfect conduit for the dragon's power. The combined energy of their sacrifice erupted outward in a wave that swept through the alien fleet. But this was not a weapon of destruction. Instead, it carried a message more powerful than any bomb. Every being touched by the wave felt what Jiho and Kiros felt for each other. The love between species. The willingness to sacrifice everything, to protect others. The hope that the galaxy could be better than endless war and conquest. War Commander Thexal screamed as the wave hit his flagship. His mind, conditioned for centuries to see only enemies and resources, suddenly understood what he had spent his life destroying. The weight of his crimes crushed down on him like a collapsing star. All across the fleet, hegemony soldiers began laying down their weapons. Many fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sudden understanding of what they had become. But the effort was too much for Jiho and Kairos. The boy's small human body could not channel such cosmic forces without being consumed by them. The dragon's ancient life force, already weakened by years of sharing it with his human companion, finally reached its limit. They began to fade, their physical forms becoming transparent as their consciousness expanded beyond the need for bodies. "We did it," Jiho whispered. "The message is spreading." Across the galaxy, on worlds that had never known hope, beings looked up at their skies and felt something they had forgotten. The possibility of freedom. The dream of peace. Kiros smiled with his great dragon face. "You were everything I hoped you would be, little bridge builder. And you were the best guardian anyone could ask for," Jiho replied. They faded from physical existence, but their consciousness did not die. Instead, it became something new. A guardian spirit that would watch over not just Earth, but any world, where beings tried to build bridges instead of walls. On Earth, the hegemony fleet began to withdraw. War Commander Thexal, broken by his newfound understanding of good and evil, surrendered command to those of his people who wanted to seek forgiveness for their crimes. In the backyard where it all began, Daeho and Hana stood holding each other. They could no longer see their son or his dragon guardian, but they could feel their presence in the warm breeze that suddenly began to blow. Professor Nam's instruments detected residual energy that would take her years to fully understand. But she already knew the most important thing. Jiho and Kiros had become something beyond death, beyond species, beyond the physical limits that had once bound them. Years later, Captain Wu Jin, now Admiral of Earth's first interstellar fleet, would lead humanity to the stars. They carried with them the message that Jiho and Kairos had died to spread. That differences between species were not walls to fight over, but bridges to build upon. And sometimes, when young beings across the galaxy faced impossible choices between hatred and love, they would feel the presence of a boy and his dragon, guiding them toward the light. The last star dragon had not died. He had chosen something far greater. He had chosen to live forever in the bonds between all thinking beings who dared to hope for something better than war. The bridge builder's work was complete, but the bridges he built would last until the end of time,